In the 16th century, in North Africa, the English captain Solomon led his crew into a fierce battle to defeat the Ottoman army that had occupied a city. A brutal battle took place on the streets, and Solomon showed exceptional fighting skills, killing the enemy without mercy. Eventually, they reached the castle, and the defenders immediately closed the gates, trying to block them. However, Solomon's team quickly blew up the gate, and the fire quickly spread throughout the areas. Solomon stood watching the corpses until he found a surviving soldier, and threatened him until the soldier revealed the location of the throne room. Before leaving, Solomon shot him dead. Their team entered the throne room, which was surrounded by mirrors. As they began to move in, monsters suddenly emerged from the mirrors, attacking and abducting several warriors, pulling them inside. The sailors were terrified, but Solomon was determined to continue. When one of the team members tried to run away, Solomon shot him dead immediately. At this moment, a door behind him opened, revealing the throne. Solomon entered, only for the door to slam shut behind him, leaving the crew outside. Then he began to hear a strange sound, but he ignored it to claim the treasure. Nearby, the king's corpse started to freeze, and Solomon checked his breath, confirming that the temperature had dropped drastically as a cold chill enveloped the room. A series of dark shadows began to emerge from the statues surrounding Solomon. Suddenly, the shadows gathered around the throne, and a monster appeared, the death god of demons, striking Solomon and knocking him down. The death god explained that he had come to take Solomon's soul, as his life had been full of crimes and greed, continuing to strike Solomon when he argued back. He summoned a fiery sword and began to attack. Solomon blocked with his own sword, declaring that he was not ready to go to hell. Solomon dodged the death god's relentless attacks, then leaped through a window to escape. A year later, in England, Solomon was living in a monastery. He had renounced violence and donated his wealth to the church as part of a process to purify his soul, seeking salvation and avoiding hell. Solomon had covered the walls of his room with eerie notes and tattooed numerous symbols on his body to protect himself from demonic attacks. One afternoon, a priest explained that ever since Solomon moved in, he had felt a growing shadow, and the night before, a prophetic dream had warned that Solomon must leave the monastery. In desperation, Solomon left the monastery without knowing where to go. Solomon began wandering aimlessly, crossing the countryside in the winter, witnessing many bizarre scenes, such as plague doctors burning those infected and local villagers being hanged as punishment. One day, a carriage carrying the Crowthorne family passed by and invited Solomon to join them, but he refused. Later that day, Solomon stopped to rest and heard whispers. Suddenly, he was attacked from behind by a man with a knife. Two other men emerged from hiding, striking Solomon a few times before checking his pockets, only to find that he had no money. When they found some papers filled with strange symbols, they assumed he was a witch and brought him close to the fire, deciding to burn him alive as a witch. Solomon pushed back but didn't defend himself, allowing the bandits to beat him until he lost consciousness. A flashback reveals that Solomon grew up as the son of an important lord. However, being the second son, his father wanted him to become a priest, while his older brother Marcus would inherit the estate. Solomon refused to become a priest and ran away from home, causing his father to sever ties with him. In the midst of the flashback, refugees suddenly appeared, and Solomon woke up, realizing he was in the carriage with the Crowthorne family. This family promised to protect him, and soon after, they stopped to camp overnight. Solomon should have rested, but didn't want to be a burden, so he volunteered to help. First, he washed his face, and the children stared at his tattoos. Later, at dinner, Solomon shared some stories about the people who had hired his crew to fight for them. Meredith's daughter found these stories fascinating, but her brother criticized her for supporting violence. Then, their father William shared that he had once been part of the Queen's army until he found faith. Killing had been difficult for William in the past, but Solomon admitted that, for him, it was quite easy. That night, Solomon dreamed again of his childhood, when he was leaving his father's land. He discovered Marcus trying to take advantage of a girl, beating her into silence. Solomon tried to intervene, drawing a knife, but Marcus easily defeated him and slashed a cut on his cheek. Then Marcus dragged Solomon to the edge of a cliff, pushed him, and told him to leave. Solomon resisted, causing Marcus to trip over a rock and fall off the cliff. Back in the present, Solomon woke up and joined William by the campfire. William gave him a pendant with pictures of his wife and daughter, then explained that his family would be boarding a ship to the New World to start over. He invited Solomon to join them, but Solomon explained that his soul was cursed and his family should not have him by their side. In the following days, Solomon continued the journey with the Crowthorne family, and Meredith sewed him several new sets of clothes. One afternoon, Meredith's younger brother Samuel asked Solomon to teach him some martial arts moves, and Solomon taught him a few basic exercises with a stick. At that moment, they discovered a town that had been burned down and decided to investigate. Dead bodies with burned-out eyes were scattered everywhere. William blamed demons, but Solomon found a pile of firewood and realized the villagers had failed to burn a witch. Meredith noticed a strange movement and found a girl still alive among the corpses. The girl was taken back to their camp and confirmed that the villagers had tried to burn a witch, but the fire had not harmed her. The witch had killed all the villagers and burned their eyes out for daring to watch her being burned. The Crowthorne family wanted to pray for the dead, but the girl angrily refused. Solomon felt suspicious. He took a cross from the family and tried to offer it to the girl. The girl turned to Meredith and said, "We want her." The girl was actually the witch, and she marked a strange symbol on Meredith's hand before her eyes changed. Then she leapt to attack Solomon, saying that the devil was waiting for him. Solomon pushed her away, and the witch revealed her true form. After one failed attack, she transformed into a flock of birds and flew away to escape. In a nearby town, a group of violent, fanatical followers was attacking the villagers and locking them in cages to offer them to their master, the witch Malachi. They were led by a masked rider who rewarded the henchmen by touching their faces and transferring a part of his power to them. The men's eyes changed, and the rider's hands left burn marks on their skin. But now they had become stronger. Meanwhile, the Crowthorne family was preparing to camp, and Solomon checked the mark on Meredith's hand, but he didn't recognize it. In the evening, Samuel woke Solomon, saying he heard strange sounds. Solomon went to check and discovered Malachi's cult was kidnapping more people. While Solomon was away, the cultists easily surrounded the camp and kidnapped the entire family, quickly overpowering William as he tried to defend himself. They found the mark on Meredith's hand and declared her the one they needed, which was approved by the masked rider. Not long after, Solomon arrived, and Malachi asked him to kill all of them, but instead, Solomon tried to negotiate for the family's freedom. The rider used magic to speak through one of his henchmen, demanding Solomon kill him. Solomon refused because he was a follower of peace, and the man immediately killed Samuel. In pain and despair, Solomon finally decided to abandon his vow of peace, saying he was willing to go to hell if it was the price to pay to kill these monsters. Furious, Solomon began to fight the murderer, easily disarming him and stabbing him with his own knife. A few of the cultists tried to attack Solomon, but they couldn't stop him. The others dragged Meredith away, while William tried to help her but was stabbed to death by two men. Not long after, William's eldest son was also killed. Solomon grew even more enraged, chopping off the head of another cultist before continuing to fight, killing anyone who dared to oppose him. As he was distracted, the masked rider and most of his group left, taking Meredith on horseback. Solomon wasn't fast enough to catch up with them. Solomon then checked on William, who, before dying, asked him to swear to save Meredith. William said that if Solomon saved Meredith, his soul would be redeemed. After William passed, his wife gave Solomon a pendant to help him find Meredith. Before leaving, Solomon took weapons and a horse from the cultists, noticing the dark power leaving their bodies as he rode into the forest. Another group of cultists emerged from hiding and began chasing Solomon. He drew two guns, shooting both of them at the same time, then caught up with a group on the road and quickly killed all the bad guys with precise slashes. Next, Solomon opened the cage containing the victims and showed them the pendant, asking about Meredith. Sadly, none of them had seen her. A few miles away, the cult continued to raid and burn another village. Meredith was locked in a cage, trying to comfort the other victims while the masked rider stared at them. 3 days later, Solomon saw many people passing through a destroyed town, trying to find a new refuge. He decided to ride to the ruins and rest at an abandoned church. As he began to pray, Solomon was suddenly startled by a man and immediately drew his sword. However, it was just Father Michael, who had never left his church. He explained that he had witnessed many horrifying things and confirmed that the cult had destroyed this area. The leader of the cult, Malachi, was a servant of the devil, but no one had ever seen him because he hid in his castle. The cult's victims would either become soldiers or slaves, depending on their strength. Suddenly, Solomon heard a noise, and Michael opened a door in the ground, revealing a group of zombies hiding underground. Solomon couldn't believe it when Michael didn't destroy them. Father Michael explained that the zombies had once been his parishioners, but Malachi's curse had turned them into this state. He didn't think he should kill them because it wasn't their fault. He also admitted that he had been feeding them before pushing Solomon into the pit and closing the door. The zombies immediately surrounded Solomon and prepared to feast on him. However, Solomon drew his sword and began to fight them off. Some zombies began devouring their fellow creatures, while others continued to attack Solomon. His torch helped keep the zombies at bay. While inside the church, Michael tried to hear what was happening, but a person unexpectedly entered and attacked him. In the basement, a zombie jumped onto Solomon's back, but he shoved it into the wall, knocking it down. This created a gap, and Solomon threw the zombie out, making the hole larger so he could escape. As he ran through a narrow tunnel, the zombies tried to follow him. He used the torch to push them back and threw objects in their path to block them. As he neared the exit, a zombie jumped out to attack him, but Solomon quickly killed it in just a few seconds. 2 more zombies appeared and began chasing him. Solomon ran to the exit, smashed the wooden panel, and broke free. The zombies tried to follow, but the light from the torch forced them to retreat into the darkness. At that moment, Solomon was surrounded by the same thieves from earlier, who threw Michael's head to the ground. The 3 of them had agreed to work for Malachi, and now they also wielded some power. However, they were still inexperienced with it, and Solomon easily defeated them one by one in just a few minutes. Afterward, he threatened to throw one of them into the horde of zombies and pointed at the picture of Meredith, demanding they reveal where she was. The thief claimed that the girl was dead, driving Solomon into a fury. He struck the thief before allowing the zombies to drag him away. Sometime later, Solomon arrived at a town and entered a tavern to drink himself into oblivion, hoping to forget his burdens. There he ran into some former crew members who wanted Solomon to return as their captain. However, Solomon refused, saying he had nothing left to fight for. In the middle of the night, a group of men suddenly attacked Solomon while he was sleeping and captured him. The next morning, the 2 were crucified for daring to defy Malachi, while the masked knight stood watch. Soon after, Solomon was brought to the site, and the knight ordered his soldiers to nail him. Unlike the others, Solomon did not scream, thinking he deserved this. When he lost consciousness, the knight and his group left. At the end of the convoy, they carried cages with slaves, including Meredith, alive and well. She saw Solomon on the cross and began calling his name, causing him to wake up and realize she was okay. In desperation, Solomon started pulling his hands out of the nails and untying the ropes to fall to the ground. The cultists were about to kill him, but Solomon's old team appeared and fought them, defeating them in seconds. That evening, Solomon woke up on a bed in a hideout, where a doctor was tending to his wounds. Solomon ordered her to stay away before he removed the bandages and discovered the scars left by the fingernails. After making sure that he could still use his hands, she began to pack up and leave. A member of the team advised him to wait until he had fully recovered. Solomon reacted strongly, causing everyone to stop. They explained that they were ready to fight with him to defeat Malachi. At dinner, the group shared more about Malachi's past, a man who had once been a priest and a healer, but had sold his soul to the devil in exchange for power. The Knight of the Beast obeyed Malachi's orders, and rumors said he wasn't beneath the mask. Solomon pointed out that they must kill the Knight of the Beast first, to make Malachi vulnerable. The group revealed that the enemy's base was the Exmouth castle, which shocked Solomon as it was the place where he grew up. They informed him that the lord of the castle had died, which fueled Solomon's thirst for revenge even more. He ordered everyone to prepare. Sometime later, Solomon and the team secretly entered the castle through a hidden tunnel that Solomon remembered from his childhood. The witch from before appeared on the balcony and threw a skull, just as Solomon threw his sword, finishing her off. The skull shattered on the ground like an alarm signal, and a wave of cultists appeared to start the battle. As the men began to die scattered around, the Knight of the Beast also appeared and started attacking Solomon's team, killing them one by one. Solomon rushed to stop the assault, ordering his teammates to flee and hide as they could not win. When the team managed to escape, Solomon continued to fight the Knight of the Beast, but soon he was pushed back, using the opportunity to retreat behind a door and lock it to avoid being followed. Afterward, Solomon sneaked through the castle's areas, hiding whenever a cultist passed by. Finally, he reached the dungeon, and as he was about to rescue the slaves, a cultist suddenly appeared behind him. Solomon quickly ended him and used the key to unlock all the cells. Unfortunately, Meredith was not among the prisoners. One remaining man, when Solomon checked, he was startled to discover that it was his father. In despair, Solomon struggled with the chains, but his father explained that they could not be broken because they were made of dark magic. Eventually, Solomon apologized for Marcus's death, but his father revealed that Marcus was not dead. The boy had survived the fall, but was gravely injured and had not woken up. The doctors and priests didn't know what to do, so his father had hired a witch. Marcus woke up, but the darkness had taken over him. He only obeyed the witch's orders, and the wound on his face was so severe that he had to wear a mask. It turned out that Marcus was the Knight of the Beast, and the witch who brought him back was Malachi, who had taken all the Lord's money as payment. Solomon's father felt deeply guilty, so he took Solomon's gun and begged for an end. In tears, he shot his father to free him from his suffering. In another tunnel, Solomon's team was fighting off the cultists with fire and crossbows, but they couldn't hold on any longer. Solomon quickly arrived, and after killing an enemy, he asked the captain to buy him a few more minutes to end this. He entered the throne room and slammed into the closed door. At that moment, a group of cultists appeared behind him. But before they could attack, the door opened, and Solomon rushed inside to find Meredith trapped in a cage. She warned him that it was a trap. On the throne, Malachi mocked Solomon and then used magic to vanish. Solomon decided to rescue Meredith, but she said this was the trap they had set to lure him back to the castle. Suddenly, the Knight of the Beast stabbed Solomon in the shoulder, knocking him to the ground and starting the fight. Solomon didn't want to fight his own brother, and he tried to use words to make Marcus snap out of it, but Marcus kept attacking, forcing Solomon to defend himself. Both were skilled swordsmen and couldn't land a blow on each other as they moved around the room. While both were engrossed in their fight, Meredith secretly escaped from the cage and hid in the shadows. At that moment, Malachi returned and drew aside a curtain to reveal a giant mirror, inside which was a monstrous demon. In desperation, Solomon continued fighting Marcus, eventually landing a blow on him. When Marcus tightened his grip on his neck, Solomon removed his mask, revealing a terrifying face, causing Marcus to release him. Solomon then threw a torch at Marcus, setting him ablaze. With a few final moves, he immediately ended Marcus's life. At the same time, Malachi took Meredith hostage, using her blood to pour onto the mirror, releasing the monster. Solomon immediately charged forward, dodging the monster's slow attacks, and turned back to face Malachi, saying he would trade his soul for Meredith. Malachi didn't believe him and prepared to kill Meredith, but Solomon managed to shoot him in the head first. The witch collapsed into the mirror, drawing the monster and Solomon's soul back into it, causing him to fall. Meredith rushed over to check, thinking he was dead, but suddenly Solomon woke up. He remembered William's words and realized that he had truly found redemption by saving Meredith. His team then appeared, explaining that all the cultists had fallen, and the war ended from there. Solomon continued his journey across the continents to fight monsters and protect the innocent. Please subscribe and turn on notifications to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.